Picture this. The year is roughly 3100 BCE. The land we know as Egypt isn't a single kingdom yet. Instead, it's split into two lands, the fertile delta region of Lower Egypt in the north and the arid valleys of Upper Egypt in the south. For centuries, these two regions have been rivals, locked in competition over land, resources, and power. Now imagine a young leader rising from the southern lands, a ruler with a bold vision. He doesn't just want to lead Upper Egypt. He wants to unite the two lands into a single mighty kingdom. His name? Menes, or perhaps Narmer. The lines between history and legend blur, but one thing is certain: this was the man who shaped the Egypt we know today. But how did Menes accomplish this impossible task? How did one man unite two fiercely independent regions and become the first pharaoh of a unified Egypt? And why do historians still debate whether he was a real person or a myth? Today we'll uncover the story of King Menes, the unifier of Egypt and the founder of the first dynasty. Before we dive deeper into Menes's story, let's set the stage. Ancient Egypt wasn't always the sprawling empire we think of today. Over 5,000 years ago, it was divided into two distinct regions. Upper Egypt, which stretched along the Nile's southern flow from the First Cataract to modern-day Cairo, and Lower Egypt, the broad, fertile expanse of the Nile Delta in the north. The two regions were like siblings locked in rivalry. Upper Egypt was a land of warriors and conquerors, its people hardened by the rugged, arid terrain. They wore the white crown of Hedjit, a symbol of their authority. Lower Egypt, on the other hand, was a lush, agriculturally rich land where life revolved around the fertile Nile floodplains. Its rulers wore the red crown of Deshret, a mark of their dominion over the delta. But here's the challenge. These two lands weren't just geographically different, they were culturally distinct with unique customs, gods, and ways of life. Uniting them wasn't just about military might, it was about blending two worlds into one. And yet, that's exactly what Menes set out to do. The question is, how did he succeed where others had failed? To understand that, we need to meet the man behind the legend. To understand the rise of Menes, we first need to step back and consider his dual identity. The name Menes is often intertwined with another Narmer. Were they the same person, two different rulers, or simply two names for one extraordinary legend? Historians still debate this, but here's what we know. Both Menes and Narmer are credited with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, and their stories are inseparable from the dawn of Egypt's first dynasty. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is the Narmer Palette, an ancient ceremonial artifact discovered in 1898. This stunning relic, carved in stone, depicts a victorious ruler wearing the crowns of both Upper and Lower Egypt, perhaps the first recorded symbol of a united kingdom. On one side of the palette, the king, believed to be Narmer, is shown wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt as he strikes down his enemies. On the other side, he dons the red crown of Lower Egypt, a visual declaration that he ruled both lands. It's an image of power, victory, and a new beginning. But was this Narmer, Menes, or both? Could it be that Menes was the ceremonial title bestowed upon Narmer for his unification of Egypt? The truth may be buried deep in the sands of history. Legend has it that Menes, or Narmer, achieved unification through a combination of sheer force, brilliant strategy, and diplomacy. Ancient texts suggest he led a mighty army from Upper Egypt to conquer the delta region of Lower Egypt. But this wasn't just a battle of swords and shields, it was a battle of wits. Menes didn't destroy his enemies, he absorbed them. He preserved their gods, respected their customs, and blended their symbols into a new unified identity. This wasn't just a political move, it was a masterstroke in cultural integration. And then there's the legend of the crocodile. According to ancient tales, Menes was once attacked by a ferocious crocodile while crossing the Nile. Instead of succumbing to fear, he wrestled the beast and emerged victorious, earning the loyalty of his people and the divine favor of the gods. Whether this tale is history or myth, It paints Menes as not just a warrior, but a figure of extraordinary courage, a man destined to lead. But his triumph didn't end on the battlefield. Unification wasn't just about taking the crown of both Upper and Lower Egypt. It was about keeping the peace in a fragile, newly formed kingdom. Menes reportedly established a system of governance that respected the diversity of his people, while promoting a singular vision for Egypt's future. By integrating local rulers and traditions into his administration, he ensured that both Upper and Lower Egypt felt represented in his rule. This ability to balance power and tradition was perhaps his greatest strength. His conquest was not the end, it was the beginning. With the two lands united, Menes laid the foundation for a kingdom that would last over 3,000 years. The question remains, how does one lead such a vast and diverse kingdom? How does one forge an empire from the ashes of division? To answer that, we must explore the legacy Menes left behind. Menes wasn't just a conqueror, he was a visionary. After uniting Upper and Lower Egypt, he faced an even greater challenge, building a unified nation out of two lands with distinct identities, cultures, and traditions. His solution was nothing short of revolutionary. Menes didn't impose his rule. Instead, he created a new identity for Egypt, one that blended the best of both worlds. One of his first and most critical decisions was the establishment of Memphis as the new capital of Egypt. According to legend, Menes chose a strategic location at the boundary between Upper and Lower Egypt, symbolizing the unity he had worked so hard to achieve. But building Memphis wasn't an easy task. The site was prone to flooding, so Menes is said to have diverted the Nile to create a stable foundation for the city. Whether this tale is true or not, Memphis would go on to become the heart of Egyptian politics, culture, and religion for centuries. Menes also laid the foundation for what we now recognize as the concept of pharaonic rule. He wasn't just a king, he was seen as a divine figure, a living embodiment of Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship. By merging religious and political authority, Menes created a system that would define Egyptian governance for over 3,000 years. His reign established the precedent that the pharaoh wasn't just a ruler, but a mediator between the gods and the people. Culturally, Menes' unification ushered in a golden age of innovation. With resources from both Upper and Lower Egypt at his disposal, the kingdom flourished. Agriculture expanded, irrigation systems were developed, and trade networks stretched beyond Egypt's borders. This era of prosperity set the stage for the construction of monumental architecture, advances in art, and the codification of hieroglyphic writing, all of which would come to define ancient Egypt's legacy. But Menes's most enduring achievement was the creation of a unified Egyptian identity. Before his reign, Upper and Lower Egypt had their own gods, traditions, and symbols. Under Menes, these were harmonized. For instance, the double crown, or Shent, symbolized the unity of the two lands, combining the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt. This symbol became a powerful reminder of the strength that came from unity. Of course, no reign is without its challenges, and Menes was no exception. Ancient records suggest that he may have faced revolts or resistance from factions unwilling to accept his rule, but his ability to maintain peace and stability in such a diverse kingdom speaks to his extraordinary leadership. As with much of Menes's life, his death is shrouded in mystery and legend. Some stories claim he was carried off by a hippopotamus during a hunt, a strange and almost poetic end for a ruler who had tamed the chaos of his kingdom. Whether true or not, the tale only adds to the mystique surrounding his reign. Menes's achievements didn't just change Egypt, they set the foundation for one of the most enduring civilizations in human history. His vision of unity, his innovations, and his leadership became the blueprint for every pharaoh who followed. Even today, the story of Menes reminds us of the power of vision, determination, and the ability to bring people together. Despite his monumental achievements, Menes remains an enigma. Was he a real historical figure, or does he belong more to the realm of legend? Historians and archaeologists have been debating this question for over a century, and the truth might lie somewhere in between. The first mystery is his name itself. The ancient Egyptians credited their first pharaoh with the unification of the two lands, but they called him Menes. Yet no artifacts or inscriptions directly name a king Menes. Instead, the name Narmer appears on some of the oldest surviving records, like the Narmer Palette, which shows a king uniting Upper and Lower Egypt. Was Narmer simply another name for Menes, or were they two separate figures? Some scholars believe that Menes might not have been a specific person at all, but rather a title given to the first ruler of a united Egypt, a symbol of unity rather than a single man. Then there's the question of his reign. Ancient Egyptian king lists, like the Turin king list and the Abydos table, include Menes as the founder of the first dynasty. Yet these lists, written thousands of years after his supposed lifetime, mix history with myth. They portray Menes as a larger-than-life figure, a king chosen by the gods themselves to bring order to a chaotic world. Did these accounts exaggerate his accomplishments, turning a human ruler into a legend? The legends surrounding Menes' death only deepen the mystery. According to one tale, he was killed by a hippopotamus while hunting. The story feels almost mythical, like a symbol of the eternal struggle between man and nature. In Egyptian mythology, the hippopotamus was associated with chaos, a fitting end for a king whose life's work was to bring order to the two lands. But was this tale inspired by real events, or was it a metaphor for his reign and legacy? There's also the question of why Menes, or Narmer, was able to accomplish what so many others couldn't. Was it simply his military genius and strategic mind, or did he benefit from a unique moment in history when the conditions were just right for unification? Some experts point to the Nile's predictable flooding, which may have encouraged cooperation between regions, while others suggest that Menes took advantage of rival factions within Lower Egypt to consolidate power. And yet, even with all these mysteries, Menes' story lives on, a powerful symbol of leadership and unity. Whether he was one man or many, whether his achievements were historical or exaggerated by legend, his impact is undeniable. He became the blueprint for what it meant to be a pharaoh, a god-king who brought together different peoples, who turned chaos into order, and who laid the foundations for one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. In a way, the mystery of Menes only adds to his legend. His story reminds us that history is never just a collection of facts. It's a tapestry woven from myth, memory, and the human need to make sense of the past. And as long as we tell his story, Menes will live on, not just as the first pharaoh of Egypt, but as a timeless figure of vision, ambition, and the power of unity. King Menes, or Narmer, represents far more than a single ruler. His story is the story of Egypt itself, a tale of unification, innovation, and the creation of one of history's most extraordinary civilizations. Whether he was a real historical figure, a legendary symbol, or a fusion of both, his impact is undeniable. Through his vision, courage, and determination, he laid the foundation for a kingdom that would thrive for millennia. As we look back on Menes' legacy, we're reminded of the incredible power of unity. His ability to bring together two lands with distinct identities and forge a singular, lasting culture is a testament to what great leadership can achieve. It's a story of turning division into harmony, chaos into order, and dreams into reality. But the mystery surrounding Menes also reminds us of how little we truly know about the ancient world. How many more stories are hidden beneath the sands of time, waiting to be uncovered? Menes may be the first chapter in Egypt's history, but there's so much more to explore. If this story of ancient leadership and ambition fascinated you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more incredible tales from history. And tell us in the comments, what do you think? Was Menes a real man, a myth, or something in between? Let's keep the conversation alive.